Biological theories. This theory is about why people become criminals. As we go along with the topic, we're going to tackle what might it mean to say someone is born criminal. We're going to look at the biological theories or physiological explanations. When we say physiological, it pertains to physic or body, meaning the approach of this theory is mainly the idea that there are physical differences that make some people be considered as criminal. Physiological theories claim that physical features of criminals differ from non-criminals. We're going to look at the work of Cesare Lombroso. Cesare Lombroso, before his research, most explanations were religious or moralistic, meaning criminals are sinners. There are no explanations to it. Now look into the causes why criminals are committing crime. Criminals are sinners. End of discussion. Whereas Lombroso tried to come up with a way of actually looking at it scientifically. Lombroso was an Italian psychiatrist and military doctor who pioneered the use of scientific methods in criminology. He systematically measured and recorded facial and other physical features of convicted criminals. He then concluded that criminals could be identified by their physiological or physical features. It has nothing to do with the fact that they are sinners, but there's something physically about them that you can spot, signs or similarities about them. In reality, his theory is very much now not considered to be of any weight as to considering one as a criminal or not. In Book of Criminal Man, first published in 1876, Lombroso developed his theory of criminal anthropology to explain why people commit crime. His theory suggests that there are basic differences between offenders and non-offenders. More specifically, according to Lombroso, born criminals have certain physical characteristics or abnormalities that make them different. Lombroso called these abnormalities atavistic characteristics, which means ancestor in Latin. The physical abnormalities that offenders have occurred because offenders were the products of an earlier stage of human evolution, a stage where more primitive humans and apes existed. Offenders are basically throwbacks to earlier phases of human history. Connected to the idea of atavistic characteristics is the idea of degeneration. According to him, offenders give certain physical and mental characteristics of primitive humans, and they commit crime because of these biological abnormalities. One of the things that he's known for is that he conducted very detailed studies of people, particularly studies of people's bodies. He started to directly study offenders and measure and document the characteristics of their body. Over the course of his life, he accumulated a wide range of data analyzing skulls and the physical anomalies of criminals, both cadavers and living subjects. In the latter case, Lombroso reported every single detail from the height, weight, and strength to the shape of the noses, ears, foreheads, and even man's feet. Along with detailed measurements of the body, Lombroso used criminals' tattoos, poetry, and jargon to provide a portrait of the criminal. Psychologically, male offenders were described by Lombroso as vain, vindictive, lazy, dominated by a thirst for blood, and delighting in orgies. Lombroso also searched for relationships between criminality and age, marital status, sex, profession, diet, and environment. Within this analysis, he concluded that while a small part of criminality was caused by social conditions, most of the criminals were constitutionally so. Thus, Lombroso emphasized the influence of biological factors over environmental explanations. A couple of the examples of physical characteristics were having low sloping forehead, large ears, asymmetry of the face, protruding jaw, long arms, asymmetry of the cranium, large chin, flattened or upturned nose, coupled with high cheekbones. Lombroso concluded that males need five or more of these characteristics in order for them to be prone to criminality. Females, however, only needed three to be in that danger zone of being born criminal. According to him, you could tell what kind of crime of some will commit by the way they look. He believed that thieves could be identified by their expressive face and small wandering eyes. Murderers had cold glassy stares, bloodshot eyes, and big hawk eyes like noses, and sex offenders had thick lips and protruding ears. According to Lombroso, the born criminal was constitutionally morally insane, had psychological characteristics that belonged to primitive stage of humankind, and lacked any moral sense. He believed that most criminals did not act out of free will, but rather they were urged to commit crimes because of their innate organic nature. From his claim of degeneration and atavistic characteristics, that being criminals because of the reason that their ancestors were also criminals, them being morally insane does not separate it from their cause of action, but because it is part of them, thus aiming to understand criminal minds and therefore prevent crime. It was important to study, measure, and classify criminals as possessions, did with the ill through a bodily examination.
In 2016, two researchers from China's Shanghai Jiaotong University published a paper claiming that they have used facial recognition technology to pinpoint features that corresponded to criminality. Modern facial recognition technology, which is more likely to misidentify people of color, has raised the specter of Lombroso's criminal type once more. Critics pointed out of that one of the study weaknesses was its assumption that the population of people convicted of crimes ade- adequately reflected the population of people who commit crimes. Even if early criminologists could not have imagined modern facial recognition technology, they could have predicted the ethical issue it would cause.
Conclusion. Lombroso's theory came strong to the following aspects. He showed the importance of examining medical and historical records of criminals, which links to offenders profiling and that sort of stuff we use nowadays. He argued that offenders were not freely choosing to their behavior. This helped us focus on crime prevention rather than inflicting punishment. Since these people might not be able to help it, then it's more about help them than punish them. His work heralded the beginnings of offender profiling, getting a big picture of the criminal. While his theory gained some strengths, his theory also gained criticisms. Subsequent research by Gore in 1913, Lombroso failed to show a link between facial features and criminality. Goring actually had a competing study that showed it does not link to facial features. He failed to compare his research on criminals with the control group of non-criminals. He might have found same characteristics among general population. He only looked at the common features within prisoners. He never then compared results with non-prisoners or non-criminals. He might have seen these features to them but wasn't able to see the possibilities. Not everyone with atavistic features, not everyone with atavistic features is a criminal, and not all criminals have them. Again, the possibility of non-criminals to actually have these features and criminals that don't have any of these features. His theory is deterministic. Once you are born criminal, you cannot escape your fate of being one. Lastly, physiological theory ignores the effects of upbringing environment. He was more of nature than nurture. Crime could often be down to the learning of the environment, not only by inheriting it. His idea about atavism had been abandoned. Other ideas that find their roots in his work, such as there may be physical characteristics that contribute to criminal behavior, are very much alive in the criminology today. The idea of genes and brain structure related to criminal behavior has seen an increasing amount of interest in the past few decades. Thank you.